We're kicking off with NXT, and Corey Graves was a part of this week's show, which was a surprise to many given his recent outburst on social media. Not only was Graves on the show, but the commentator told fans that "I am right where I want to be," and described the Silver brand as a place where passion is everything. PW Insider were the first to report that Graves would be a commentator for this week's NXT, despite his recent online post that had sparked speculation about his future with WWE. Reports later indicated, though, that Graves had not been fired and had no plans to leave, and according to sources, Graves met with Shawn Michaels and Triple H to resolve the issues. This matter has been addressed, and Graves is back at the commentary desk in NXT, though it remains uncertain if this is a permanent move or if he'll eventually return to the main roster. Fans will have to stay tuned to see where Graves' WWE journey takes him next, but for now, his issues with the recent commentary reshuffle are a thing of the past. At the recent The People vs. GCW event, PCO smashed the TNA Digital Media Championship with a sledgehammer in a moment that TNA had no knowledge of prior to the spot. After PCO went into business for himself, it was reported that the title he smashed was just a replica and that TNA had the actual championship, but PCO is telling a different story. On Twitter, the veteran wrestler denied having a replica and said that the idea was the dumbest thing I've heard from people wearing suits in offices. On Wrestling Observer Radio, it was shared that TNA offered PCO a lower deal amid cost-cutting measures, and though both sides agreed, TNA later decided not to renew his contract. TNA reportedly asked PCO to drop the title at a San Antonio taping as part of his exit from TNA, but talks between the two sides broke down, and PCO did not hear from TNA again. This is an ugly situation, and it's clear that PCO's time with TNA is well and truly over, no matter if it was a replica title or the actual Digital Media Championship that he smashed with his sledgehammer. More from TNA as Jordynne Grace wrestled her final match with the promotion at Genesis, and after her defeat to Tessa Blanchard, the Juggernaut has wasted no time in making moves. No longer under contract with TNA, Grace was spotted at the WWE Performance Center on January 21st, fueling talk that she's WWE bound. The timing of this couldn't be more interesting, as Grace recently pulled out of a scheduled meet and greet that would have been with the Wrestling Collector in Stockholm, New Jersey. A statement by the Wrestling Collector shared the news that Grace, alongside her husband Jonathan Gresham, would no longer appear due to circumstances beyond our control. The company promised refunds and noted that Gresham would be rescheduled for a later date, but Grace's absence from this immediately raised more questions among fans. According to the speculation, Grace was quietly removed from the TNA roster page on their site, and WWE sources are expecting her to be backstage at next weekend's Royal Rumble. If so, then Grace's debut as an official WWE superstar could be a matter of days away, and her arrival would be a major shakeup to WWE's women's division on the road to WrestleMania 41. The former Knockout World Champion's powerhouse style would bring something fresh to WWE, and all signs are pointing to her arrival being a question of when, not if. What do you think Jordynne Grace's role in WWE will be? Should she head straight to the main roster or dominate NXT first? Drop your thoughts in the comments. In the early days of AEW, Britt Baker was one of, if not the leading woman of the promotion, and the Dentist had been the first female wrestler signed to a full-time contract. Now, though, Baker has been missing from AEW TV since November 2024, and rumors and reports about her do not paint the former Women's World Champion in a positive light. Wade Keller of PW Torch recently reported that Baker may be done with AEW, as people in the company believe she's in the same boat as others who aren't being used right now. Keller said Baker has been frustrated that Tony Khan is not making any effort to put her on TV, and the belief is that Khan is fed up with her, and should that change, she'll be called. On Wrestling Observer Radio, the matter was further discussed, as it was said that, while there is a kernel of truth to Keller's report, Baker's situation was blown way out of proportion. Brian Alvarez explained that while Baker does have her share of detractors in AEW, the notion that nobody in AEW likes her is simply not an accurate representation of the truth. Alvarez suggested that the report on Baker was exaggerated due to news outlets using more and more salacious headlines, to the point that some believed she was already gone from AEW. As for why Baker isn't being used, Alvarez said that most people in AEW do not know, and ultimately it'll be Tony Khan's decision as to when she'll be brought back. Fans can expect to see Britt Baker again, though, as it's reported that she still has a lot of time left on her contract, and nobody in AEW claimed to Alvarez that she is never coming back. Britt Baker's most recent appearance saw her defeat Penelope Ford, only to be confronted by Serena Deeb after the match, though Baker told Deeb that nobody cares about her. Time will tell when Tony Khan decides to use Britt Baker again, and whether a full picture about her absence comes out, but for now, the former champion remains on the sidelines. After his victory in Tribal Combat during Raw's debut on Netflix, Roman Reigns teased that he'd be returning on January 27th when asked for his next move by Paul Heyman. Fans immediately speculated on a possible Tribal Chief ceremony for the show, or that Reigns will address his upcoming role in the Men's Royal Rumble match next weekend. Now, though, it seems that Reigns' role on next week's Raw has been scrapped, as WWE did not make any mentions of him appearing during this week's episode of the Red Brand. Instead, WWE announced Logan Paul for next week's show, as well as a World Tag Team Championship match, and it seems odd WWE would forget to mention Reigns' role. All signs point to WWE having scrapped Reigns' appearance at the show, though there's no word on why fans will no longer be seeing the original Tribal Chief live. Fans will instead have to wait until the Royal Rumble on February 1st to see Reigns, who aims to win his second Royal Rumble match and go on to face Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania 41. On the October 4th SmackDown, AJ Styles suffered a Lisfranc fracture during his match with Carmelo Hayes, Styles' first match back after a lengthy hiatus. AJ was recently backstage at TNA Final Resolution, where he was no longer using crutches, a cast, or a boot, and Styles was not limping at the show either. With that said, AJ told people he was not at 100% yet, as his injury comes amid rumors and speculation from fans that a move to AEW could be possible. Fans have pointed out that Will Ospreay had been using the Styles Clash, which has received a big reaction, and some argue that this is setting up Styles' debut and a program with Will. Fightful Select reports that Styles has always seemed happy in WWE, and when he signed his last 2 contracts, he intended that these would be the last contracts he ever signed. While some may want to see Styles in AEW, all signs point to him finishing his wrestling career in WWE, and for now, AJ's focus is on recovering from last October's unfortunate injury. Over to NXT, and while Chase U seemingly met its end last November at the hands of Ridge Holland, things may not be truly over for the group. A somber Andre Chase returned this week and said that Hank Walker and Tank Ledger should just split as a tag team, saying it's the way of all tag teams in WWE. Chase later bumped into Cal Dixon, who was watching old Chase U tapes, and while Chase reiterated that Chase U is dead, Cal said that it doesn't have to be. This is an interesting development, as while Chase U is done, there's nothing stopping Chase launching a new group with names other than Thea Hale, Duke Hudson, and Riley Osborne. Perhaps it was Dixon who called out to Chase in a recent vignette, and perhaps Kalani Jordan, who was spotted in the background of Chase's talk with Hank and Tank, could be a member. Bayley was once again on NXT, proving she may be WWE's busiest woman after being on Raw and SmackDown in recent days, and spoke about wanting to rid NXT of Roxanne Perez. Instead of the prodigy, Giulia interrupted to speak about Bayley being a role model, but the pair were confronted by Cora, Jade, and Perez, who were drowned out with boos. It was hard to hear what the heels had to say because of these boos, but a brawl quickly began, and after a backstage segment, we cut to the ring where the four were still brawling. In a rarity, the brawl was filmed as it made its way to the back in an interesting moment that showed that a feud between the two warring sides is just beginning. Tony D'Angelo and Ridge Holland's physical match showed the fundamentals both have developed in NXT, with Holland making noticeable improvements in the brand. This match showed how far he's come, but it ended in chaos as Izzy Dame interfered on the Don's behalf while a brawl was breaking out at ringside. A kick to Holland's face allowed for D'Angelo to retain the NXT North American Championship, and while this match wasn't too noteworthy, most of what we got looked good. The fact that Dame helped the Don is notable, as Shawn Spears has been trying to recruit her, and could it be that her actions are part of some plan by Spears? Time will tell. With the NXT Championship on the line, Eddy Thorpe challenged Oba Femi, and while Thorpe is by no means a small man, he was dwarfed in size and power by the ruler. Femi tried to look like he was struggling at times, but there was never any moment when it felt like his 2-week reign that fans have been itching for a long time was in any real danger. A stunner and flying elbow drop scored Thorpe the closest 2 count of the match, but moments later, Femi got the win by hitting a big powerbomb. This match made Thorpe look more dangerous than he has in some time, but with Femi's reign underway, fans can expect an impactful run on top if he continues to be as good as he's been. After the match, Femi was confronted by Trick Williams, teasing a rematch between the two for the title Femi won from Trick back in NXT New Year's Evil earlier this month. A-Town Down Under were watching this match live, and Femi will be the guest on next week's Grayson Waller Effect, and expect the ruler to have plenty to say about his reign. Backstage, Trick Williams slapped the hell out of Wes Lee in a hilarious moment, and Lee sold the effect of the slap during his entrance as he acted like his jaw was still hurting. Lee still had Trick's handprint on his face, and he did a great job selling for Dion Lennox and made the latter look like an absolute monster athlete before making a comeback and getting a win off his finisher. This wasn't a long match, but it was fun for what it was, and though Lee may be small, Lennox throwing him in the air the way he did was still impressive. With 5 more minutes, these two could have made something really special, and after the match, Williams came out to share that he will face Wes Lee next week in Atlanta. At Genesis, Joe Hendry finally became the TNA World Champion, a win that many fans feared would never come, and now Hendry knows who he wants to face with the gold. On Busted Open Radio, Hendry was asked about who he has in his sights and explained why he still wants a showdown with one of WWE's biggest stars of all time. He said, John Cena, let me tell you why. I've done all the things that I thought would be impossible in an era where anything could happen. Just before Genesis, Triple H and Shawn Michaels tweeted about the show, and Cena, who hadn't tweeted about it before, tweeted the TNA logo on his Instagram. What kind of representative would I be for TNA if I didn't call out John Cena? I'm 1000% confident I can hang with John Cena on the microphone. I love it because when Cena gets on the microphone, he speaks the truth. I generally believe that people haven't seen what I can do on the microphone yet. I'm so comfortable going out there with nothing prepared, and for me, Cena is on the top echelon of talkers in this business. If you don't invite this challenge to step up, then you're not challenging yourself. I want it. I know how perfect he is on the mic, but I believe I can hang with John Cena. Though some believing Cena appearing in TNA is impossible, it is clear that TNA and WWE are close, and an appearance seems more likely now than ever before. With this year being Cena's final year in the ring, it could easily be Cena's only chance to compete at a TNA ring, and him debuting in TNA would certainly garner a ton of attention. Do you believe Joe Hendry has what it takes to stand toe-to-toe with John Cena on the mic? Are you hoping to see the pair face off in the ring? Let us know your thoughts down below. When it comes to the WWE Hall of Fame, John Cena is a guaranteed future entrant, and it's fitting that a name synonymous with Cena's career will induct him. On the Insight podcast, Chris Van Vliet told Kurt Angle that according to betting websites like MyBookie, he is the favorite to induct John, a fact that took Angle by surprise. Angle added that he would be honored to induct John into the Hall of Fame in what will be a well-deserved induction for the 16-time WWE World Champion when the time is right. During this week's Raw, CM Punk made his intentions to win the Royal Rumble crystal clear and took some shots at some of the biggest names in WWE. His final shot was saved for Hulk Hogan, as he said that if the Hulkster enters the men's Rumble match, he'll throw the Dusty Hall of Famer over the top rope and kill Hulkamania. This earned a huge pop from the crowd in Texas, another sign of Hogan's wavering popularity among wrestling fans, though one name who wasn't a fan was Vince Russo. On Legion of Raw, Russo said Punk's line was for a cheap pop and said that fans could cut Hogan some slack as Hulk has made mistakes like everybody else. It's certainly interesting to see Russo back Hogan, as the Hulkster infamously filed a defamation lawsuit against Russo following his comments about Hogan at WCW Bash at the Beach 2000. As we previously reported, Punk's comment was not approved by WWE management prior to his appearance, though at this time there's no word on Punk facing any consequences for what he said. If Punk's comment was just to get a pop, then he certainly accomplished that, and the Chicago-made star remains focused on winning the Royal Rumble and going on to headline WrestleMania. For 6 years, AEW's Saraya has been in a relationship with Falling in Reverse frontman Ronnie Radke, but now the couple have called it quits. TMZ Sports reports that the pair split late last year, and there had been signs for weeks that the couple was no longer an item. The biggest clue was Saraya skipping the usual social media shout-out for Radke's birthday on December 15th, though the exact reason for their split is unknown. Saraya told fans last week that she was taking a break from AEW for personal reasons, as the former Women's World Champion is focusing on herself for now after this breakup. This April, WWE will host WrestleMania in Las Vegas, and given that fans from across the world will come to Sin City, it's no wonder that many promotions plan on hosting shows. WrestleMania week is always a huge deal, but one promotion fans shouldn't expect to see in Las Vegas this April is Tony Khan's Ring of Honor. Sources in Las Vegas told WrestleZone that ROH was working on hosting Supercard of Honor that weekend in a venue near Fremont Street, just a 15-minute drive from Allegiant Stadium. Now, though, this plan has been scrapped and there's no word on why, ROH Supercard of Honor will no longer be taking part in WrestleMania weekend, a tradition that had begun in 2006. Hosting a show over WrestleMania weekend is a bold strategy, though it does raise questions as to how much attention ROH could realistically have drawn with WWE taking center stage. Whatever the reason, ROH Supercard of Honor is off of WrestleMania weekend, and what do you make of the change? Share your thoughts down in the comments. Now, LA Knight has had a long journey becoming a WWE superstar, and long before he was a regular in the ring, Knight occasionally appeared for the promotion. On the Getting Over podcast, Knight recalled being brought in 2008 as an extra, but he also ended up getting a dark match with Gene Snitsky against Crime Time. Knight was able to get in plenty of offense and clearly impressed as he was brought back the next week for SmackDown, but that's when things went very wrong. Knight said that for one reason or another, he was an hour late to the SmackDown taping, and after getting a lot of heat for that, WWE didn't talk to him for the next 3 years. Knight tried to reach out and even contacted his longtime manager Paul Bearer, but nothing worked, leaving the megastar to believe that one mistake cost him a major opportunity. As for why he was late, Knight explained that he'd hurt his shoulder, and after failing to get proper treatment at first, a last-minute therapy appointment led to him running late. When WWE officials asked if he was still hurt, Knight admitted that it was his fault for being late and learned a valuable lesson from the experience and the heavy punishment. Fans can only wonder what Knight's career would have looked like had he not been late to that one show, but as of one of WWE's most popular stars today, things eventually worked out for LA Knight. More from NXT, as in women's action, Karmen Petrovic and Jaida Parker showed plenty of physicality, but also had a few awkward, mistimed moments, though that's to be expected in WWE's developmental. WWE may shiny up NXT, but it's still the brand for talent who are still learning, and this match saw Kalani Jordan get involved and distract Parker. This allowed Petrovic to get the win over Parker, who had a new theme song, and it's clear that NXT is setting up a first showdown between Parker and Jordan. Niko Vance and Brooks Jensen faced Sax Lorenzo and Luca Crusifino in a match that was high energy from the start, and they did a great job showcasing that all four men were ready to do damage. Both teams had some good spots, with the most brutal being when Jensen sent Crusifino into the steps shortly before Vance hit a lariat on Stax for the win. This was a short and sweet affair that didn't need to do more than it accomplished, and while it didn't look pretty, the ugliness and painfulness of the match made it look even better. Lexis King retained the Heritage Cup against Charlie Dempsey, and King refused to use the brass knuckles that had been left in his bucket. Though King refused to use them, with the score tied at 1 fall each, he used a low blow behind the ref's back to get the win and retain the cup. Most of this was enjoyable, but the finish left a little to be desired, as King was never a convincing babyface, so hopefully he stops trying to act like one sooner rather than later. Bianca Belair and Naomi were on NXT to hype up next week's women's tag team title match with Metaphor's Lash legend and Jakara Jackson, who were in a backstage segment. With others from the NXT women's roster, Lash and Jackson spoke about the importance of bringing the tag titles to NXT in a short, effective segment that helped build next week's match. Diamond Dallas Page was in the crowd at this week's NXT, and though the yoga enthusiast's role didn't go further than that, he earned a huge pop when shown on camera. And that was this week's episode of NXT, and what did you make of this week's show? Share your thoughts down in the comments section below. For years, Tony Chimel was part of WWE programming and is best known for his role as an announcer, and fans may be seeing him again soon enough in AEW. According to Fightful Select, a couple of people in AEW have pitched for Chimel to be brought on board, but there's no confirmation on whether it'll actually happen. Chimel became well known for his introduction of Cope in WWE, with his voice often cracking when saying "Rated R Superstar," which quickly became a meme among wrestling fans. Bringing in Chimel for a special introduction for Cope in AEW would certainly be an interesting move, but it'll be Tony Khan who has the final say about the former WWE announcer. And we're ending with TNA Genesis, where Josh Alexander lost his I Quit match to Mike Santana, and after the match, called Santana the new standard in TNA and shared that he was quitting the company. With that said, sources report that Alexander will actually finish his time with TNA at the upcoming tapings, and his contract with TNA will actually expire next month. In a backstage segment, Santino Marella demanded that Alexander be at this week's Impact, and we'll have to see what the Walking Weapon has in store for his final event for TNA.